bit
This
of
conference will now be recorded.
regarding the plugin that we have created to use Revit, and like there's going to be a short video about 7 minutes that you can check to see how you can import and export into that platform. Okay, so anyways, with that being said, I also wanted just to remind everybody of the applications that we have that are available for everybody to download completely free. Okay, we have a really wide range of programs that you're able to download from our from BIM Server Center. Some are the ones that he's going to be showing you today, but there's also other ones that you're welcome to view here and to download. And I'll just show you here where you go into the store and you go into free. Here you'll have all these applications, which are including CYPE architecture, the plugin that I mentioned. This is the plugin for ArchiCAD, or if you work other ones. And then there's just some interesting programs here. Let's not forget to give a mention to this OpenBIM COVID. And this is to establish safety zones in a project, okay, by just importing model either via a BIM model, or just you can just bring in a drawing. You can create a plan to generate the safety zones for going back into the office. Okay. Anyways, and it's all there available for free. And that, I'm going to turn it over to you. Today, I think we're going to show you a couple of interesting solutions. One of them is thermal loads, which is also a free solution to do your thermal load heating and cooling calculations. And then David has a couple of other things that he'll show you. Okay. Let me go ahead and give you the presenter's role, and you should be able to start sharing your screen already, Daniel. Sorry, I was calling you David, no? I apologize for that.
Yeah, but don't worry, it's okay.
You know, it's David, the other guy. So you guys have similar names.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Daniel.
And just give me 1 minute, because this is the first time that I use this software.
Well, you have there a part that says screen right in the middle there, and you have it. We can see your screen.
Are you watching my screen right now?
Yes, we are. And by the way, okay. Daniel is an industrial engineer and he works in CYPE, so he has a lot of knowledge when it comes to MEP programs and this type of solutions. All right, thank you.
Thank you, James. Hello, everyone. As James said, my name is Daniel, and we are here because I would like to show you some programs that are included in the OpenBIM workflow for the MEP solutions. And the first program that I would like to show you is the THERM loads that I have open here. The THERM loads is it's a software that allowed us to calculate the thermal loads in building that uses the radiant time series method proposed and recommended by the American Society S-Ray. But before coming here, due to the fact that THERM loads uses the analytical model of our building, depending on what kind of architectural software we use to create the architectural model, we have to do some previous step. So for example, if we use the Revit program for the architectural model, as James said, we have here the plugin for Revit that allowed us to upload the architectural model, and we can import this model to the THERM loads, or if we use the free software such as CYPE architecture, once we have the architectural model, we can export that to the BIM Server Center and go through the analytical model program that we have that is for free. You can download it at any time. And this is the program that I like to call it one-click program, because when we have the architectural model, the program with only one click allowed us to generate, well, actually the program generate the analytical model based on the BIM model, the spaces, surfaces, edges, and shadows in a couple of seconds. So once we have the analytical model, now we are able to start working with the THERM loads. This software also import all the construction element that we have defined in the architectural model, and also the spaces. And we need to define the spaces and also and all the materials for every construction element that we have. But when we define the spaces, this software allowed us to define as an occupied or not habitable space. We can define the calculation condition depending on our needs, and also the properties of ventilation or the internal heat gains. This software also allowed us to define or create daily profiles for the space of our building. So with this quick tool, we are able to define the daily profile that is only a bar chart that, depending on what kind of a study we want to perform for our building, we can create as many as possible. And then we can attach all those daily profile to the months of the year that they are supposed to have that daily profile. Here, if we open the drop-down menu, we can change to the daily profile and select all the daily profile that we have defined. So I think this is a very interesting point of this software. But when we have all the spaces defined, we only have to go through all the construction elements, giving the material properties to all of construction elements. And we have different ways to introduce all these materials. The first way would be by defining all the layers one by one. We have the option to give all the properties of that material. We can choose between solid, air cavity, vapor barrier. We can give the properties, and we can also, with CYPE loads, we can change the aspect of the material depending on our needs. And if we don't want to give the properties to all the layers, we can also use the predefined libraries that THERM loads has in order to, based on what material we want to choose for that layer, we can select that material, and automatically that layer material will be created. Okay, and well, I forgot. We have another way to introduce all the material, because as I told you before, THERM loads uses the SRAY method. So that is why from the SRAY source, we also have a predefined libraries that allowed us to introduce the most representative wall types based on the SRAY source. So if we want to use this library, we can choose what kind of material or what kind of walls we want, and automatically all the layers are imported from this library. And once we have all the construction elements defined, we are able also to give properties to the windows, because not only we can, depending on what kind of study we want, if we want to perform a more exhaustive calculation for the windows, we are able to define the opaque fraction and also the external shading based on the properties of that window. So once we have defined all the construction elements with all the materials and also the spaces, the only thing that is left is the thermal bridges. And I think this is the most powerful tool that this software has, that allowed us, well, actually the program can calculate and give the value to all the thermal bridges of our building. We have two options. We can give the value to the thermal bridges one by one manually in case we know the value, or we can choose between all these codes that we have here and let the program give the value to all the thermal bridges automatically. And here we have all the value that the program assigned to the thermal bridges. And once we click on accept, we can go to the thermal bridges icon, and we have all the thermal bridges with the reference and also the value of that thermal bridge and the source of that value. That is the code, the standard code that we have that we chose here in the edges tool. And now when we have all the elements defined, it's time for the calculation. That is why we have to go to the thermal loads tab. And the first step that we have to do in order to calculate the thermal loads is to place the building in any part of the world. So we have two options. The first one, if we know the weather condition, we are able to introduce all the weather data manually one by one, or here we can import the weather condition. We can use the S-Ray browser in order to import all the weather condition from that location. For example, we can choose the region, Central America. Let's place this building in Vancouver, Canada. The state of Canada is British Columbia, if I'm not wrong, and also the station name, Vancouver. And we have Vancouver Harbor. I don't know which Vancouver is the right one, but anyway, let's pick the first one. And automatically all the data, all the weather data is imported, and we don't have to find all this data. We don't have to find this data because we can use the S-Ray source. Once we have located our building, the next step is to define the calculation option. We have the possibility to swap between the S-Ray method or the European code to calculate the thermal loads for our building. In this example, we are going to continue with the S-Ray method. We click on accept, and then the next step is to define the hypothesis. What is a hypothesis? I like to define a hypothesis like an idea. And for example, when I want to calculate the thermal loads of a building, when I create a hypothesis, I'm telling the program that I have something in my mind that I want to calculate. And with the zones, I'm able to tell the program which spaces I want to calculate and to get the thermal loads, because I can perform more than one hypothesis. I can create as many as I want, and I can choose different space for every hypothesis depending on my needs. And here, when we create the zone, we have in the 3D view all the spaces that I chose for the thermal loads analysis. But I have already created here a hypothesis that includes all the spaces, all the building. okay? And those are the thermal loads that we are going to calculate right now, because we have done the building tab, and we have placed the building into a location in the world. We have chosen what kind of analysis method we want for the thermal loads, and now it's time with the update results. The CYPE loads launch the calculation software, and now we have all the calculations, and we can go through all the spaces of the building, and we are able to check all the results, such as cooling load divided by months. We can check the annual peak cooling load progression, the peak cooling load also divided by months, or the complete cooling loads report. And all this data is of course exported into any kind of format in case we need to export into a PDF format or whatever. And we can check all this data going through all the spaces of our building. But in case we want to have the full report with all the data all together, we are able to get the list of the thermal loads, and we have the overall results here with the cooling load summary. We have all the data here, or we can go to the full report to the where all the we can check all the results by going through all the spaces here, and we have the full report. It has 270 pages, and we have all the results. Also, we have the charts up here, the graphs based on the spaces, and the month of the year, and we have everything here. In case you want to have this file exported into any kind of format, one more time we are able to do that, and that's it. And this is how we get all the thermal loads with CYPE loads. And due to the fact that this is a software that is included in the OpenBIM workflow, we can share these results into the BIM Server Center. We can export that and start working using the OpenBIM workflow. The next program that I would like to show you is the CYPE hydraulic system that is also available in the BIM Server Center. CYPE hydraulic system is a software created to design the hydraulic networks for fire protection using sprinklers and fire hose reels in accordance with the NFPA 13. This software also includes the EPANET application to carry out the hydraulic calculation. But how this program works and what makes this program unique, such as probably the 80–100% of the BIM programs that we have in the BIM Server Center also works pretty similar. We have all the we have the general option that allowed us to import what kind of code we want for this this installation. We can import the NFPA 13, and also when we import the code, we are able to modify customize all the general data, and also define the libraries of every every element of the installation. With the general data, we are able to modify all the checks to be carried out that are defined in the code NFPA 13. Why would I like to modify the code? Because sometimes I want to perform a more exhaustive or more restrictive hydraulic calculation, and that is why I can add or delete more checks to be carried out to the hydraulic network, and this program allowed us to do that. We are also able to define what kind of calculation we want to perform for this hydraulic network. We can swap between Hussey Williams or Darcy Bagebach, and also we can define all the elements that are going to be in our hydraulic network, such as the sprinklers. We can define what kind of sprinkler we want for our installation, what kind of type of response, and modify all its properties as our needs. Once we have defined all the checks that we want to carry out, and all the elements that are supposed to be in our installation, it's time to start designing the hydraulic network. That is why another good option of this program is that the hydraulic system allowed us to introduce the booster set and to modify, well, actually to define the booster set by giving the midpoint or introducing all the points of the booster set. Or, as always, every time that we see a blue arrow, that means that we have a predefined library of the element that we are defining. In this case, we have all the booster set that we have in this library, and once we click on that predefined element, we only have to accept, and we can introduce that element. But the good point of this software is the bunch of different ways that we have to introduce the sprinklers and to create the hydraulic network. The first one would be by introducing the sprinkler one by one. It doesn't matter what kind of tool we choose. It's always going to pop up the same window that we have to define what kind of a sprinkler we want and to define the properties of that element. But when we click on a sprinkler, we can define, well, or we can place all the sprinklers one by one manually, and then assign the protected area of those sprinklers. But we also have different options. The first one, we can use different patterns to introduce all these sprinklers. The first one is the branch lines, that here we can choose, we can swap between sprinklers that we have defined previously in the general option, what kind of checks we want to carry out for that sprinkler, and also the properties of that pattern. And once we have defined everything, automatically we can introduce all the hydraulic network with only 2 clicks of the mouse. But we can have the branch line pattern or the CrossMain with branch lines. It pops up the same windows when we can introduce the sprinkler for that pattern, and also the properties of that pattern. And with only give me a second. Here we can introduce that pattern. so easily, like clicking 2 times with the mouse. And also the last pattern that this software allowed us to introduce the hydraulic network is the grid system, that also is exactly the same window. We have to choose what kind of sprinkler we want, and automatically we create the pattern of that hydraulic network. But I think what the most powerful tool that we have to create the hydraulic network is the automatic generation. I mean, the program is able to define or to create the hydraulic network automatically by choosing what kind of pattern we want. We have to choose the sprinklers and also the checks one more time, and we can define uh, the properties of that pattern. And we only have to go to the space that we want to introduce that hydraulic network. We click on the space and confirm with the right click, and automatically the program generates the hydraulic network based on the sprinkler that we have selected, and also the pattern, and we can create as many as we want as many as we want. No, we can create one sprinkler pattern for each space automatically, and then we only have to connect the networks by using the pipes. But imagine once we have done all the hydraulic network, it's time to analyze and calculate the installation. That is why we have two options. We have the first one, that is the update result. So if we click here, the program will calculate the hydraulic network based on all the parameters that we have introduced, and will give the results. But we have another tool that is this kind of magic wand that allowed the program to calculate the optimal solution of the hydraulic network based on the properties and the checks to carry it out that we have defined in the general options. So this is a very powerful tool of this program. But like the 90% programs of the BIM Server Center, when there is any kind of error, there is always a warning message that says what kind of error we have. In this case, we have the tank, that the water supply is higher than the amount of volume of this tank. So we are able to change the volume and to modify the element in order to perform a proper calculation. And now when we design the hydraulic network, we can see that we don't have any kind of issue or problem in our installation. What can we do with this program when we talk about the result? This program allowed us to generate a graphical analysis of the result depending on the property that we want to check, for example, the flow. Automatically, based on the result, the program will change and will modify all the pipes and all the elements in order to check that element in our installation. We can swap between all the results, whatever we want to check, the flow, velocity, pressure loss, whatever we need to check or not. And also we have a tool that is the 3D view that allowed us, this is the 3D view that allowed us to go through all the layers of the architectural model. We can swap between layers. We can hide any kind of layer that we have from our building, and we can go through all the 3D view here. And if you can, I don't know if you can appreciate that, but all the pipes
Yeah,
are
you could see the
in a
spray
different.
pattern. You could see the spray pattern also.
Yeah, the spray pattern. We have here the animation to check how the sprinklers work, and also the graphical analysis of the results we have here. And this is I think it is a very interesting tool in order to check all the pipes in a 3D way, and not only at the top of the building. We can go to the basement and check all the spray pattern and the graphical analysis of the results. But now it's time to check the reports of this of the hydraulic of this software. That is why we have to go here. Up here we have the report tools, and we are able to generate two kind of report. The first one is the material schedule that allowed us to get all the materials that we have introduced, and also all the equipment that we have introduced in our building. And in case we want to export this report, we can do it in any kind of format. Or if we go back to the reports, we are able to get the project report with all the calculations of the nodes and pipes. And we have all the nodes of our hydraulic network with the elevation, what kind of node we are studying, the pressure, and the flow of that goes through that node. And also the same goes for the pipes. We are able to check all the pipes based on the initial and final node with the properties, the water properties that goes through that pipe, in case that we want to perform any kind of change in our network, because we have decided that. And if we want to study something in particular, we are able to come here and to check all the calculations.
All right. And let me just mention while you change over, because we have 5 minutes, if we can change over to the last one. And I'll just mention, but just skip this. In all of our programs, pretty much of MEP, they have the same thing like you see in this one. There's a tab like for bill of quantities, and then he could have also generated the bill of quantities for the project. He can change it even if into Canadian dollars if he wants to in the parameters there. You just click actually in the currency, and you can change into Canadian dollars too. Yeah, right there you put Canada CA, and you go into Canadian dollars right there, accept, and you can, so even the bill of quantities is generated, not just in this one, but in the electrical, in the PV systems, and in all of them, you generate also the bill of quantities at the end. Okay, so let's see this last one of the wireless, and we'll finish up in a few minutes.
The wireless, this is also a free application for the design of wireless network for indoor spaces. So this is a very simple program, very easy to use, because we only have to define the frequency, and also what kind of network is going to be in our building, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, or Zigbee. And once we have defined the network, we have to of course go through all the construction element defining and the properties of the frequency, what kind of attenuation that element has, and the same goes for the emitter. We are able to introduce as many emitters as we want, well, as we are supposed to place in our building, and uh, with the emitters and also with the receiver, we are able to swap between operating frequencies. And what I find more interesting is the type of the antenna. Depending on the device of the emitter, we are able to swap between all of different antennas range. And once we click on accept, automatically we have all the radiation diagram imported from our configuration. And when we click on accept, and when we place all the emitters and receiver, because the receiver is also it follows the same step that the emitters, but for the spaces. And when we click on calculation, it only takes 15 seconds more or less. Give me a second. We'll calculate the wireless networks for the indoor spaces by carrying out the coverage analysis. And in a couple of seconds, there we go. There we go. There we go. Come on. I know that we are on live. I have so bunch of programs running on right now, and maybe it's going to
It's
take more
normal.
time.
It's
Is the
normal, but it's fairly quick, all these programs. You know, the thing is that once that you're live doing something, it sometimes takes a little
There we
longer.
go. There we go. We have the graphical analysis of the result, but we have to click on the space, and we are able to check the results of all the space, and we are able to check the what kind of signal of the emitter we have, uh, the propagation due to distance, via floors, walls, and so on. Or we can get to the reports up here. We have the amount of power received based on the type of the room, what kind of space we have, and also the graphical analysis of all the spaces. And we can export all this report into any kind of format, or in case we want to export that to the BIM Server Center and be able to work with and let this program to work with the OpenBIM workflow, and let the other co-workers join to the project and use this calculation for whatever they want.
And you
So
can also do the bill of quantities here too,
yeah,
right? So you see,
the bill
pretty
of
much
quantity was the same,
he
but I
hasn't put any
haven't.
information, so it's not done. But you
Yeah,
have an idea. All our programs and MEP do the same thing. They go to this, and then they have that bill of quantities tab
yeah,
for you
because
to
if we want
generate
to
it.
create the bill of quantities, we have to create the cost databases, create the mapping, and with the project database, we are able to update the quantities using the what we have defined here with the mapping that I don't have any kind of mapping, and with the cost database, the bill of quantities will be created in a couple of seconds, and
Yeah.
we'll have
And one more
like
thing.
here.
Yeah, one more thing. You see that on that ribbon, on the top ribbon, where it says BIM percentage. There's a percentage sign and BIM.
Yeah,
That is in case you are doing a job that requires a certain percentage of the job to be done in BIM. you click that, and it's going to say how much percentage of that job has been done in BIM in case it is needed for you to present in a, sometimes in certain areas, if it's a job that requires a certain amount of percentage for you to get a discount or etc. It also has that. But anyways, that's a very good presentation. Thank you very much, Daniel. I don't know if anybody has any questions, Edwin or Victor or Simon. Thank you, Simon. I
Anyway,
can't
if
hear
you
you.
have any question, you can always send us an email, and you will get an answer as fast as possible. So do
Yeah,
not
even though,
hesitate to send us an email in case you
yeah,
have something to ask.
even though that you're using sometimes a free software or something, it's we still give you that support that is needed. So it's support@cype.com. I don't know if you're trying to talk and we can't hear you, Edwin. I know you have your microphone on, but anyways, if not, I don't. Yeah. Hello. I'm gonna go ahead and stop recording.